lifted high, not to come down, seated in heavenly places by the Spirit of the living God. I'm above, and I am more than victorious. Welcome to Nothing But Faith. This is Pastor Clarice Okenwa of Jesus Reigns Ministries International in Dallas, Texas, in the USA. I'm equally the visionary of the Rebuilding Watching Prayer Warriors at the Gates 4 Nations, a kingdom intercession assignment. We are here today to talk about one of the most important topics in the Bible. And we can as well say it is one of the ultimate, most important topic when it comes to our relationship with God. Nothing but faith. Faith has to be given a huge priority if we want to have a very balanced and stable walk with God or growth in our Christianity. Faith cannot just be overlooked. Faith cannot just be neglected. Faith cannot be ignored. Faith cannot be taken for granted. Faith requires work. Faith is very important. You see, faith is mentioned in the Bible with the studies given by the New International Version, about 250 or above 200, a little bit above 250 times, which really shows how much important it is. And there are very powerful and strong statements made about faith in the Bible. It is important for us to, first of all, consider to ask ourselves, what is faith? What is faith? The Bible takes time to define faith. In Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 1, and I'm going to read. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. If we just consider that definition, the assurance of things hoped for, and the conviction, some different Bibles will say the assurance and the demonstration of things hoped for. It is important to have the right perspective about faith. First of all, through the definition of faith. What is faith? Thankfully, the Bible in Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 1 gives us a very clear definition of faith. And I'm going to read. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things unseen. What a powerful definition of faith. Let us break down into understanding that a little bit more. First of all, why do we have the expression now? Now resonates onto us as present. Faith is present. Faith is present. The efficient faith and the effective faith has to be present, considering the fact that faith is the assurance of things hoped for. It has to be in the present. That assurance has to be in the present. You know, every one of us can testify of the fact that we wake up every day with different moods. Some days we wake up and we feel like we've won the Olympics. And some other days we wake up and we feel like we're having a mountain to throw into the sea, and that without faith. So faith is a matter of the now, the present, the now second of our life. In the now, the moment you think, the moment you have reflection, the moment you are challenged, the moment you are traveling, the moment you are fought, the moment you are sick. Faith is a matter of the now. And so, faith has to be understood in the now. Faith has to be understood in the now. And we're going to have time to talk a little bit more about hope. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for. So what is hope? Hope is a belief in a desire that can happen. It's a belief that something will happen or can happen. So it takes hope to trigger faith. It takes hope to trigger faith. Hope sits, or faith sits on hope. It is the assurance of things hoped for. What is your hope? That just tells us that we have no right to bury our hope. We cannot just bury our hope. Usually when people go into depression, it's because all hope is buried. It's because the enemy has succeeded in playing with their mind and convincing them there is no need, convincing them that there is no need to hope. There is absolutely no need to dream, because usually dreams precedes hope. So now faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things unseen. Wow. If we can just have the assurance for things hoped, how paradoxical it is to ask us to have a conviction for things. So faith comes to validate hope. Faith comes to give a solid foundation to your hope. Faith comes to bring your hope to life. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 1 is usually used in relation to our covenant with God as the definition of faith. So I'm going to ask us to purposely decide to know what faith is and to hold on to knowing what faith is, because if you don't know what faith is, you can stand for faith. You can fight for having faith. You can't invest in faith. It is the faith that you know that you are going to fight for. It is the faith that you know that you are going to invest into. It is the faith that you know that you are going to want to have. Faith is the evidence or the conviction of things hoped for. That is such a positive and powerful statement. It is the conviction, it is the assurance of those things that we do not see. Listen to me. Faith is also always associated to positivity. You cannot have faith and miss the positive. Faith will always direct you into the positive of life. In faith, there is no negative. In faith, it is positive. In faith, all things work together. In other words, the negative in faith works like the absolute need of the negative when you want to have power, electricity. You can't have electricity without the positive and the negative wires. You need the both of them. And so it is for faith. With faith, even negative experiences prepare you for the positives. All things work together. Even negative experiences prepare you for the positive. Faith is the birthing of the materialization of your hope. Faith is the substance of your hope. Faith brings all the benefits of salvation into our lives. In other words, faith is relevant for life. Faith will always speak relevance, efficacy, or blessing to our lives. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 and verse 9, will give us a better understanding of the benefits of faith. So this includes healing, prosperity, peace, joy, love. In 1 Peter chapter 1 and verse 8, it includes deliverance from demons. So the world of adversity, the spiritual realm, the adversity in the spiritual realm. It is by faith that we are able to prevail, to stand, to prevail against the devices of the enemy, to understand them, have an insight in them. It is by faith that we leap over walls. It is by faith that we overcome the powers of hell. It is by faith that the gates of hell will not prevail against us. It is by faith that we triumph and we walk upon serpents and scorpions and all the power of the enemy. It is by faith. It is by faith that we overcome the cycle of curses against our lives. It is by faith that we walk in sanctification, that we have a sound mind, that we have victory in our emotions. It is by faith. It is by faith that we even ensure and assure the salvation of our soul. It is because of faith in our lives that we, on a daily basis, renew our salvation stand, our salvation integrity. We're going to conclude our communication of faith, nothing but faith, with a very important section of testimonies. We're going to consider biblical testimonies or scriptural testimonies as well as personal testimonies. I'm going to take us into the book of 2 Kings, chapter 4, verse 8 to 37. And I'm going to have us read it personally, but the story is a very common story in the Bible. The Shunammite woman and prophet Elijah. A wealthy woman, a prominent woman among her people, who had received basically a lot from life, but no male child. And she happened to notice that the prophet was passing through her city often, and she decided to open her doors to the prophet to the extent of building an upper room in her house for the benefit of the prophet. And one day, as the prophet had to pass through her house, he was burdened with praying for her to have a son. And after praying for her, she was able to conceive and she had a son. But later on, the Bible tells us that one day, as the son was in the field with the father, he started complaining about not feeling well. And the father asked a servant to take him to his mother. And he got to his mother and he died. let's pay attention to the attitude, because faith is a matter of attitude. Faith is a matter of actions, and faith is a matter of results. She took the child and laid him on the bed of the prophet. That just by itself, that action speaks volume. That was a faith action. She could have decided to cry, to run to her husband and cry over the dead child, but she laid him on the bed of the prophet. In other words, she immediately decided to turn to the supernatural. She had hope in something. Her hope was that if I lay him on the bed of the prophet, something will happen. But the Bible says that she laid him on the bed of the prophet. Eventually, he didn't just jump back alive. She settled her donkey and she went to the prophet. She did not tell her husband what had happened to the child. She went to the prophet. And when she got to the prophet, she prostrated before the prophet, and she had what I call a reasoning together with the servant of God, who at that point is represented an attorney between her and God, or a lawyer between her and God. And because of time, I'm just going to ask us to go through the story to see exactly what were her words to the prophet. Why did you lie to me? That was a reasoning together. And the prophet decided to send his servant, but she didn't follow the servant. She made sure that she had the prophet come with her. And eventually, when the prophet got to her house, he prayed for the child, and the child came back to life. But there are some very, very strong statements made by the Shunammite woman. Her husband asked her, is everything okay? Is all right? And she said, it's all right. And that has been a song that has traveled globally into the body of Christ. It's all right, 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 it's all right. It's sung in America, in Africa, all over the world. But faith commands action, attitude, mindset, belief. A couple of days ago, I had a challenging situation, and I was having a talk with the Lord, and it was a reasoning together talk with the Lord. And I went to bed, and I found myself in a dream. And in that dream, I was driving my previous car. And at a moment in the dream, I saw a double of me driving the car, and the other double was outside watching what was going to happen to the car. And the car had a very terrible accident, very horrible accident, somersaulted and just crushed together, crushed flat together, crushed like matched by a truck, completely flattened. And I saw myself stretching my hands towards the car, and a power came out of my hand and started influencing the car. To my amazement, the car turned back on the tires, and then the car started growing like a balloon that was pumped and taking back its shape. And it was iron. It was an amazing sight. I just saw the car reshaping, and it was a gradual, steady move until it took its original shape, as well as it was polished, It was shiny. It was brand new. And immediately, even though it was a supernatural experience, a dream, or let's say a revelation, I was conscious that the Lord was teaching me something. And at that point, I was amazed and I started considering that the Lord wanted me to value and to be aware of what was invested in me. Faith stands upon what is invested in us. Faith stands upon, the Bible tells us that we prosper according to the power that is in us. The Lord causes us to prosper according to the power that dwells in us. And in the next session, we're going to examine what this power is really about. There was a second step into the dream, and I found myself by the side of the globe. And when I say the globe, it wasn't just a picture of the globe. No, it was the globe. It was giant. I was standing by the side and I just had this huge round globe in the space. And the image was like night, and then there were stars and lights reflecting on the globe. And while I was standing by it, there was a big distance between me and the globe, and I was in the space. But I was standing on, I think I was standing on a firm ground, but I'm not going to say it was the ground. I don't know what it was, but I was in the space. And while I was standing there, I can't say exactly that it was the ground, but I know absolutely that I was in the space. And while I was standing there, a first person came, and there was a distance between the globe and me, and there was a vacuum. That distance was a vacuum, and anybody that ventured to try to jump into the globe from the point where I was going to be swallowed by that vacuum. But to my amazement, I saw somebody coming and jumping. And while they jump, as they jump into the vacuum, it wasn't having a foundation. It was not like a ground that just grew up. No, it was like a surface of ground that appeared under their feet and that just carried them to the globe. And that happened for the first person, and that happened for the second person. And immediately I was again in the mood of, what is the lesson here, Lord? And he told me, unless you jump, the surface will not appear to receive you. So it is your jump into the invisible, into the unknown, that brings you. With faith, you cannot wait to have all the equation before you step, before you believe, before you stand, before you have confidence in your hope. You have to learn how to stand, and the more you stand, the more you're going to see the manifestation of your faith. But the question here is, what do you stand upon? That is going to be the subject of our next session. And I'm going to ask you to subscribe, to share the video. We'll be pleased to have you for our next session of Nothing But Faith.